Hathor was a major goddess in ancient Egyptian religion who played a wide variety of roles. As a sky deity, she was the mother or consort of the sky god Horus and the sun god Ra, both of whom were connected with kingship, and thus she was the symbolic mother of their earthly representatives, the pharaohs. She was one of several goddesses who acted as the eye of Ra, Ra's feminine counterpart, and in this form she had a vengeful aspect that protected him from his enemies. Her beneficent side represented music, dance, joy, love, sexuality, and maternal care, and she acted as the consort of several male deities and the mother of their sons. These two aspects of the goddess exemplified the Egyptian conception of femininity. Hathor crossed boundaries between worlds, helping deceased souls in the transition to the afterlife. Hathor was often depicted as a cow, symbolizing her maternal and celestial aspect, although her most common form was a woman wearing a headdress of cow horns and a sun disk. She could also be represented as a lioness, a cobra, or a sycamore tree. Cattle goddesses similar to Hathor were portrayed in Egyptian art in the 4th millennium BC, but she may not have appeared until the Old Kingdom, circa 2686 to 2181 BC. With the patronage of Old Kingdom rulers, she became one of Egypt's most important deities. More temples were dedicated to her than to any other goddess. Her most prominent temple was DENDERA in Upper Egypt. She was also worshipped in the temples of her male consorts. The Egyptians connected her with foreign lands such as Nubia and Canaan and their valuable goods, such as incense and semi-precious stones, and some of the peoples in those lands adopted her worship. In Egypt, she was one of the deities commonly invoked in private prayers and votive offerings, particularly by women desiring children. During the New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1070 BC, goddesses such as Mut and Isis encroached on Hathor's position in royal ideology, but she remained one of the most widely worshipped deities. After the end of the New Kingdom, Hathor was increasingly overshadowed by Isis, but she continued to be venerated until the extinction of ancient Egyptian religion in the early centuries AD. A bovine deity with inward curving horns appears on the NARMER palette from near the start of Egyptian history, both atop the palette and on the belt or apron of the king, NARMER. The Egyptologist Henry George Fisher suggested this deity may be Bat, a goddess who was later depicted with a woman's face and inward curling horns, seemingly reflecting the curve of the cow horns. The Egyptologist Lana Troy, however, identifies a passage in the pyramid texts from the late Old Kingdom that connects Hathor with the apron of the king, reminiscent of the goddess on NARMER's garments, and suggests the goddess on the NARMER palette is Hathor rather than Bat. In the 4th dynasty, Hathor rose rapidly to prominence. She supplanted an early crocodile god who was worshipped at DENDERA in Upper Egypt to become DENDERA's patron deity, and she increasingly absorbed the cult of Bat in the neighboring region of Hu, so that in the Middle Kingdom, circa 2055 to 1650 BC, the two deities fused into one. The theology surrounding the pharaoh in the Old Kingdom, unlike that of earlier times, focused heavily on the sun god Ra as king of the gods and father and patron of the earthly king. Hathor ascended with Ra and became his mythological wife, and thus divine mother of the pharaoh. Hathor was given the epithets Mistress of the Sky and Mistress of the Stars, and was said to dwell in the sky with Ra and other sun deities. Egyptians thought of the sky as a body of water through which the sun god sailed, and they connected it with the waters from which, according to their creation myths, the sun emerged at the beginning of time. This cosmic mother goddess was often represented as a cow. Hathor and Miheweret were both thought of as the cow who birthed the sun god and placed him between her horns. Like Nut, Hathor was said to give birth to the sun god each dawn. Hathor's Egyptian name is typically translated House of Horus, but can also be rendered as My House is the Sky. The falcon god Horus represented, among other things, the sun and sky. The house referred to may be the sky in which Horus lives, or the goddess's womb from which he, as a sun god, is born each day. Egyptian religion celebrated the sensory pleasures of life, believed to be among the gods' gifts to humanity. Egyptians ate, drank, danced, and played music at their religious festivals. They perfumed the air with flowers and incense. Many of Hathor's epithets link her to celebration. She is called the mistress of music, dance, garlands, myrrh, and drunkenness. In hymns and temple reliefs, musicians play tambourines, harps, lyres, and sistra in Hathor's honor. The sistrum, a rattle-like instrument, was particularly important in Hathor's worship. Sistra had erotic connotations and, by extension, alluded to the creation of new life. These aspects of Hathor were linked with the myth of the Eye of Ra. The eye was pacified by beer in the story of the destruction of mankind. In some versions of the distant goddess myth, the wandering eye's wildness abated when she was appeased with products of civilization like music, dance, and wine. The water of the annual flooding of the Nile, colored red by sediment, was likened to wine, and to the red-dyed beer in the destruction of mankind. Festivals during the inundation therefore incorporated drink, music, and dance as a way to appease the returning goddess. A text from the temple of Edfu says of Hathor, "The gods play the sistrum for her, the goddesses dance for her to dispel her bad temper." A hymn to the goddess Ratoi as a form of Hathor at the temple of Medamud describes the festival of drunkenness, Tek festival, as part of her mythic return to Egypt. Women carry bouquets of flowers, drunken revelers play drums, and people and animals from foreign lands dance for her as she enters the temple's festival booth. The noise of the celebration drives away hostile powers and ensures the goddess will remain in her joyful form as she awaits the male god of the temple, her mythological consort Montu, whose son she will bear. Hathor's joyful, ecstatic side indicates her feminine, procreative power. In some creation myths she helped produce the world itself. Atum, a creator god who contained all things within himself, was said to have produced his children Shu and Tefnut, and thus begun the process of creation, by masturbating. The hand he used for this act, the hand of Atum, represented the female aspect of himself and could be personified by Hathor, Nebuchadnezzar, or another goddess, Uzaset. In a late creation myth from the Ptolemaic period, 332 to 30 BC, the god Khonsu is put in a central role, and Hathor is the goddess with whom Khonsu mates to enable creation. Hathor's sexual side was seen in some short stories. In a cryptic fragment of a Middle Kingdom story, known as the Tale of the Herdsman, a herdsman encounters a hairy, animal-like goddess in a marsh and reacts with terror. On another day he encounters her as a nude, alluring woman. Most Egyptologists who study this story think this woman is Hathor or a goddess like her, one who can be wild and dangerous or benign and erotic. Thomas Schneider interprets the text as implying that between his two encounters with the goddess the herdsman has done something to pacify her. Hathor was called Mistress of Love, as an extension of her sexual aspect. In the series of love poems from Papyrus Chester Beatty I, from the 20th dynasty, circa 1189 to 1077 BC, men and women ask Hathor to bring their lovers to them. I prayed to Hathor and she heard my prayer. She destined my mistress, loved one, for me. And she came of her own free will to see me.